Good afternoon and welcome to the TiE University, TiE Global University to tackle business hackathon challenges here. Uh, I'm Vanita Gupta and I'm the founder and CEO of Apex Resources. We are in the energy space, oil and gas, and also renewables. And today with me, I have Nicole Pardo. She is an industry expert. Uh, Nicole is a senior consultant at Health Tech Solutions, and she has tremendous experience and knowledge in IT solutions and also healthcare industry. So today she's going to help us look at our challenge number 8, which centers around healthcare needs in the marketplace today. And we are going to talk about how best to tackle and handle a challenge such as this. So she's going to help us explore and understand what different tools are available to us and how can we make best use of technology and tools that are available and come up with a solution that makes sense for our sponsor. Buddy is our sponsor here, and I'm just going to quickly read out the challenge. Yes, so the business challenge today for us is centered around a healthcare need out there. And basically, it is to really create, I'm going to first talk about the solution and not so much about the challenge. The solution that the sponsor is looking for is to create a web interface wherein we are able to enter queries, medical queries, and generate answers. And I am going to, with that, I'm going to pass on the baton to Nicole because she's an expert and she can help us answer and tackle those questions and challenges. Please feel free to type in your questions if you have any. I'm sure you all will have plenty after our presentation, and Nicole will be happy to answer most of them. Thank you so much. With that, Nicole Pardo, thank you.
Thank you, Vinita, and hello, everybody. I'm Nicole Pardo. Uh, Truth be told, I'm in technology by chance, I think. I'm a physician by training, so initially I was a clinician, but reality is that, in medicine as in any other industry, technology is a big part of what we do and how we treat patients and how we interact, between providers and patients and caregivers. So having said that, uh, it's the challenge that Body is posting today is really important because it really talks about how we can, gather the data and how we can use the data to create better outcomes for our patients and for our healthcare systems. Um, I don't know if you want to do kind of like a QA session, Benita, but when I read the challenge and I was thinking how we can approach the challenge, my initial impression is that, we have to, you know, the in healthcare data is a huge ocean, right?
Mhm.
And reality is that when we start with that ocean, we're going to be very intimidated, and we really need to start thinking, okay, what part of the ocean uh, I'm gonna do I need to drill on exactly so I can get to the right answer. And to get to the right answer, I need to ask the right question, or at least the right set of questions. So when Body posted the challenge and they were telling us, about the SNOMED and all these standardized medical terminology systems, we need to ask first, well, what is SNOMED? What is this? What is standardization of data in healthcare, right?
Mhm.
So, and that goes into a little larger question, which talks about interoperability. So I know many of you are not in healthcare, but reality is that healthcare copies a lot of the things that other industries do, and it's really about interoperability. Is really about talking to each other, right? Getting pieces of information from one place and see how that information, process, you know, along the different sectors within that particular industry. And then that piece of information can be of use to create a specific answer or outcome, right? So let's drill a little bit into that in order to think how we're gonna tackle this huge question of, you know, a question answering system on the health data standards.
Mhm.
So what is the outcome that we're looking for, right? So let's take a particular example. For instance, these days we all are talking about, you know, racial inequalities, social inequalities, right? And how those pieces of information are affecting our day to day, right? And in affecting our day to day, they might be affecting the health of our patients and our communities, right? So if we're talking about social determinants of health, for instance, right? So I'm talking about the factors, right, that are influencing a particular person on how they're going to react not only to the environment but also to the system, the health of the patient itself, right? So when we talk about, so let's start by selecting a bucket. So today, let's say I'm going to select social determinants of health as my bucket to start, you know, collecting information upon, right? You know, for other people it might be genetics, for other people it might be you know, diabetes, you know, and nutritional factors, right? So let's start by selecting the bucket that we're gonna dive into when we're gonna collect information, right? And based on that, we need to decide where I'm collecting the information from, right? So in healthcare, you can collect information directly from the patient, right? And you can collect it on a form, on a, you know, written format. You can collect it via the electronic medical records. So when you go to the doctor and you're telling the doctor or the nurse what's happening, they're entering information in the system. Or these days you can actually collect it via apps. You know, if you have your your Fitbit um, or your Apple Watch or any other, or your pedometer, right? You're collecting information from there. So the first is what type of data you're collecting. The second is where are you collecting it from, right? And the third piece is where is that data going to be all hosted together, right? And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm going to do Amazon Web Services, or I'm going to do, you know, Microsoft or Oracle, right? No, I'm talking about exactly is what type of bucket, right, of information I'm collecting and putting all these things to. Excuse me. And then when I decided, you know, what I'm collecting, where I'm collecting it from, I have to say, who cares about this information? No? Who is going to be using this information and what for, right? So if I'm collecting information about demographics for social determinants of health, as in, you know, where this patient lives, the age, the level of education, and you know, the if the patient works or has access to transportation and things like that, who is interested in that information and how is that going to affect my patient? So that type of information might be of interest for healthcare providers. That type of information might be interest for community-based organizations or community service organizations. That type of information might be interest for school districts, right? So you see how we started with healthcare, but we can expand into some other places. Now that I know what information I'm collecting, where I'm collecting this information from, where am I hosting this information? So I can host it on my electronic medical record. I can host it on, I can have it on my spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, right? Or I can have it in a specific platform or app, right? Then I need to decide how this information is going to cross over to the other side, right? So that's where we're talking about interoperability and standards. You know, what are those common pieces that we all need to have in place to make sure that that information goes from one place to the other? And talking about sounds simple, but in reality is a little bit complicated. So in healthcare, there's actually about probably 40 different type of organizations that are developing standards for interoperability. And we're not, I mean, talking about all of them would be, you know, crazy. But there's a couple that we need to take into consideration. So in the challenge, they are mentioning SNOMED, which is the systematized nomenclature for of medicine. So basically, it's like a repository of all the medical terminology or biomedical terminology that could be into one place, right? But there's also, particularly for electronic medical records and other levels of standards that are a little more generalized, and that many of the healthcare and technical community are really getting together and trying to use all together. And those are the HL7 standards, which is the health level 7 standards. And those are important for you guys to take into consideration, because when you are designing for this challenge, right? So it's not only your SNOMED standards, but it's also how those terminologies that you are taking from the SNOMED are gonna fit into the HL7 standards, so that data can be consumed by all the systems that need to get access to that data, right? So I'm gonna pause here because I think I talk a lot about a lot of things at the same time. But just to summarize, we need to define exactly the bucket of information that we need to collect, where we're collecting it from, right? And then the third piece is who cares about this information, and who is gonna use it, and what they're gonna use it for.
Right. So, Nicole, do you want to just sort of break it down by and see? So they're saying that the QA system should understand the question for semantics and use the underlying UMLS slash SNOMED or any other platform knowledge base to find the best answer. So, what would a typical query look like? Can you just say what a typical query might sound like?
So let's start with something super simple, right? So let's go again back to the social determinants of health bucket, right? Yeah. So let's focus on that one, just because it's something that healthcare is really interested on these days. So the first query that we need to find is who is that patient? We need to find a patient record, right?
Okay.
So we start there, right? Because we're going to talk about one individual, right? And out of that individual, we're going to find some other things, right? So the first and probably the most basic query will be, who are you? Or who is this individual, right? And in order to do so, before we get into SNOMED and before we get into the other standards, so we need to know that record is an individual record and it doesn't repeat, right? It's not duplicated in the system, right? So if I'm looking for patient Nicole Pardo with social security number 123, it's not the same as patient Nicole Pardo with social security number 567, right? So that's the initial question that and the initial query that and the most basic that we need to find in healthcare.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So basically you're saying first find the question, first find who, right? First we have to find out where we're going to gather this data from, right? And for example, could be narrowed down to a data set of people who have diabetes, or just collect data from them and
Yeah.
on them basically, and then would you create questions and then look for semantics? How would you go about reaching UMLS, using UMLS platforms to answer those? How do you create questions and then reach those platforms?
That's a very interesting question, Benita. And that's one that we in healthcare are still working on. And that's
Got
why
it.
we need help with, right? Because right now, what we have is a whole bunch of records that have, initially they're like values, right? Like, so my patient record is one value, either by the patient ID number, the social security, but plus, and it needs to be correlated with date of birth and things like that, right? So you have your security matches there. And then the second piece is like, okay, if I'm collecting information about, as you said, diabetes, so for each patient that I have, so let's say I have a record of 100 patients, right, that I have been able to set as individual. records. For each of those, find me a lab value, right? So now we're going into the bucket of the laboratory um, data, right? So find me a lab value that is, equal or higher than, X, right? And we need, so everything starts with, okay, before I ask about this lab value, I need to see if I have a classification for that particular lab value, right? So I have to give that value a name, right? And in the majority of cases, what we do in healthcare is really have those as the codes for reimbursement. So reimbursement code that it's equivalent to this, which will be either a CPT code or any other code, right? That will say these lab values are for this particular set of reimbursement codes, right? So find me these reimbursement codes, and within these reimbursement codes, find me the records that have values higher than so and so. So now we're narrowing down to this. And then after that, you need to see how that applies to your particular project, right? So when the question here says a question answer system, that's one of the hardest things that we have in healthcare, because most of our question answer are open-ended, and those in the notes, in the electronic medical records notes, and those are really difficult to target, right? Because notes are, to some extent, they're not standardized, right?
Right.
They're a collection of words that every provider, every physician, every nurse puts in this particular box, right? And so running queries to find, that needle in the haze in the notes is one of the most difficult things that we do. That's why when we start with the question answer, we try to start simple with, is there a value for a particular record that you can attach to a code, to a number, to something before you actually go into the notes? And when you need to go into the notes, then you need to be able to dissect what kind of notes you're looking for, right?
Right.
So in using the standards for SNOMED and the other medical terminology, right? they're comprehensive, but they don't have everything just yet. So that is one of the barriers, and that's really how we need to start thinking about bringing all these systems to talk to each other, right? So again, go back to the standards, and I recommend for the students in the challenge to maybe go and read about HL7, go and read about SNOMED, go and read about the Clinical Data Interchange Standard Consortium, which is the CDISC, and go from there, right? Because those will give you some of the basis on how things need to talk to each other, and what are already the tables available for you to start bumping or start creating those queries to bump into the records.
Sounds very good. So, Nicole, are you able to just maybe write those down and email it to, we can email it to the group, the different platforms and data sets that they can avail through these platforms?
Absolutely. I can send you a couple of links through you want me to put them in the chat or just email them to you guys?
Samia, what do you think would be better? I would say for now, if you can just email it in the chat, and then we can later share it with the students.
Yeah, I can do that.
Be great.
I just have to, put them into.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, because I think that the more resource that they can tap into, that might help them. Like you're saying, it's a very big project, like a needle in the haystack. It's a big solution out there with open-ended answers for now. So for computer to really pick it up is a bit of a challenge. Is that what I'm hearing? Right.
Yeah. But it's something that if we find a way to simplify and really apply the standards that have, like, for the last couple of years, not a, to be fair, healthcare people have put the standards, but the tech people have been the ones putting the standards. If we're able to implement those in a way that allow the systems to talk to each other, this is really a a challenge for communication to make systems talk to each other.
Right, right. And what about that website they talked about, that RX norm?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
with that? And are you?
Yes, yes. Actually, what I think I'm gonna do is I have a set of links that relate back to a lot of the standards available. I'll send those to you guys, and and RX norm is just another set of standards, but those are specifically for drugs and medications. So as
Mhm.
you see, for every bucket or every piece of the healthcare, you have a different set of norms and standards. And what
Right,
happens is that when we go again and talk about interoperability, we have the only way to make these systems to be organized is by um, um, run them or create them into models. It's a modular system, right? Not everything can be up and running at the same time. And most of the time, when you have all the models together, you have to really find the correct way to make them to talk to each other. But sometimes it's easier to just go into the modular way to build these type of systems in order to be able to actually progress and move forward to create those queries and solve the challenges.
right. Now that will be very helpful. Um, and is it possible for the students to reach out to you via email if they have any questions, Nicole?
Yes, absolutely. I can put my you want me to put my email in the chat?
That would be wonderful.
Mm, okay, that's my email there.
So
And
that do we have anything more to add? Do we have any questions from any student? Or are we going to just share this recording with the student? I believe this is an odd time and children have not managed to join us because either they're studying or they're sleeping in different parts of the world. But
Mhm.
but we will be sharing this video with the students, and they can get in touch with you, and we will share those links with them later when you get a chance to email them to us.
Yep, absolutely. I once we hang up here, I will create a little file and send it to you guys.
Fantastic. No, appreciate that very much. Thank you for your time, Nicole. I'm sure the students have learned a lot, and you have helped them think in a different way and to just channelize their thoughts so that they can come up with the right solution for the challenge. Good luck to all, and wish everybody very best of luck. And thank you very much, Nicole, for your valuable time. Appreciate it a lot.